Hello everyone, this is Kriti, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about a book that I recently finished reading, and it is also my first book of 2026. The title of the book is There's the Carnival Today, which is written by Indrabadur Rai. The Nepali version of it is named Aza Ramita Tha. Indrabadur Rai is one of the most prominent and influential figure in the history of Nepali literature. I felt compelled to talk about this book because this is not an ordinary novel. It is a book that captures with it history, politics, culture, and identity within its pages, and mostly it talks about the history of Darjeeling. Indrabadur Rai is not just a novelist, he is also a modernist thinker, a literary critic, and someone who has made a tremendous contribution in the recognition of Nepali language in Indian constitution. And although I've read the translated version of this book, the English translation, which is written by Manjusri Thapa, who herself is an internationally acclaimed writer, editor, and translator, I genuinely feel that her work retains the authenticity, the emotional depth, nuances, and the author's intention of the original work. The translator's note that is there in the final pages of the novel, uh, Manjushri Thapa begins by quoting a line from the novel itself, which says, "Someone really ought to have written a novel about the old Darjeeling." She goes on to say that Indrabadur Rai himself is that someone who beautifully crafted this novel that is set in the background of old Darjeeling. And I truly agree with her because the novel feels like a literary archive of the old Darjeeling. Let's talk about the setting of the novel. The novel was set in post-independence Darjeeling, a time of deep transition. This was a period when the question of citizenship, the question of belongingness was still unsettled. Migration from Nepal was reshaping the demographic and cultural fabric of the region. The tea plantation workers were beginning to organize, and the Nepali speaking community was trying to negotiate its place within India. But what is intriguing for me is the fact that Rai does not present these historical facts by giving us some dates or events. Rather, he weaves it together in his story about everyday life, about how politics enters homes quietly, and it changes the trajectory of the characters who people this novel. So Darjeeling itself does not remain a mere setting, but it becomes a lived presence within the novel. At the center of the novel is the character of Janak, who is a businessman, but this novel is not about a hero centric narrative. So, Rai does not privilege one voice, instead, he encourages multiple characters to speak, to coexist, and to contradict one another. By reading this, it reminded me of Mikhail Bakhtin's philosophy of polyphony, where it defines a kind of narrative that has multiple voices, multiple independent voices that coexist without giving privilege to any authorial perspective. So, with the characters such as Sita, Babuni, MK, um, and even Yamuna and Ravi, Hari, we get to see this different perspective, different emotional, uh, social, and ideological view of Darjeeling. I didn't know that making this video would take a lot of time. I had to pause and restart the video again and again because there was so much of noise from the outside, and I had to, ultimately stop it. And now I'm continuing, and it's already nighttime, so the quality of the video that you're seeing might be a little bit dull, a little bit darker. I hope you will understand. And before we continue any further, I would just like to clarify something very important, that this video is not just about the summary of the novel. I am not retailing any plot or revealing any details about the novel. I just want to offer you an analytical reading of the novel, so that it may help you understand the novel more attentively, and also to encourage you all to maybe read the novel by yourself. Now, let us talk about the title, There's a Carnival Today. The carnival here does not simply represent a celebration, but it has been used in a deeply symbolic and satirical manner, where the carnival in the novel represents the political agitations and how it can turn into a spectacle, how collective struggles of people can lose its seriousness, and how participation itself can become performative. In this sense, Rai is not romanticizing the political movements. He is critically examining how history can turn into theater, and how people become spectators of their own struggles. One of the reasons why this novel deeply matters to me is because of how regional literatures are treated in India. When we talk about Indian literature, we often prioritize narratives coming out of metropolitan centers, but Darjeeling is also a part of India, and its history, cultures, and political struggles are also Indian histories. So I believe that Indra Bahadur Rai's work should not only be treated as a classic of Nepali literature, but also of Indian literature. A literature that helps us understand what India is and which stories truly matter. So thank you so much for listening to me till the end. It was such a lot of fun talking to you about a book that inspired me so much and taught me about my own culture and history. I would like to suggest you two more books that you can read, which talks about the history of Darjeeling. The first one that this one is the one that I read, There's a Carnival Today. The two other books are No Path in Darjeeling is Straight by Parimal Bhattacharya, which I have been reading. I'm halfway through it, and I'll continue. It's also a critical work. And then there's O Darjeeling for all the Nepali speakers. You can read this for the political understanding and the historical understanding of Darjeeling. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you so much for watching.